The announcement alone was enough to make headlines across every major media outlet. Prince Harry. The Duke of Sussex had agreed to a rare, in-depth interview on Piers Morgan Uncensored. The irony was almost too much for the public to digest. Harry, one of the most polarizing members of the royal family in modern history, sitting down with Piers Morgan, a man who had built a substantial portion of his public identity around criticizing Meghan Markle and Harry himself. For months, even years, Morgan had accused the royal couple of hypocrisy, attention-seeking, and disloyalty to both family and nation. So when news broke that Harry would be appearing live, unfiltered, and unedited, anticipation turned into a kind of collective cultural dread. Social media threads exploded with speculation. Was this a trap? A setup? A path to reconciliation? Or was Harry finally stepping into the lion's den to confront his fiercest critic face to face? No one could have predicted how the night would end, with cameras rolling, tension rising, and Harry walking off the set in a move so shocking it silenced even the usually unshakable Piers Morgan. Asterisk from the opening moments of the broadcast. The atmosphere was tense but cordial. Piers, dressed in his signature navy suit, opened with a seemingly respectful tone, welcoming Harry and thanking him for braving the conversation. Harry, equally composed, wore a simple gray jacket and black button-down shirt, his expression cautious but calm. For a brief moment, it appeared the two men might find common ground. They began by discussing Harry's latest humanitarian projects and his recent work on mental health advocacy. The conversation, though pointed, remained civil. But Piers, true to his style, was only warming up. "Let's not pretend there's not an elephant or several in this room," he said with a smirk. "We've both said things about each other. You've questioned the motives of the press. I've questioned yours. Tonight, we clear the air." Harry nodded, but the slight twitch of his jaw revealed the weight of the confrontation he knew was coming. And when it came, it hit hard and fast. Asterisk, it started with Meghan. "Your wife has been the subject of global media attention, much of it critical," Piers began. "But some would argue she invited that scrutiny. Do you believe she's beyond reproach?" Harry straightened in his seat. "No one is beyond critique, but there's a difference between critique and character assassination. What Meghan faced wasn't journalism. It was cruelty disguised as curiosity." Piers leaned forward, voice slightly raised. "Cruelty or consequence? When you sign multi-million-dollar media deals and then ask for privacy, don't you think the public has a right to ask questions?" Harry fired back. "We never asked for invisibility. We asked for respect. It's a profound difference, one you've consistently ignored." Piers smirked again, his favorite defense mechanism. "Respect is earned, not demanded." Harry's tone sharpened. "And yet some people think shouting over others and calling it free speech is respectable journalism." The line landed hard, and for the first time Piers paused. The gloves had come off. Asterisk, Piers shifted to another point of contention. Harry's royal exit. "You stepped down from your royal duties, relocated to the US, and launched lawsuits against the tabloids. Do you regret anything about how you handled that transition?" Harry replied evenly, "I regret that I wasn't allowed to prioritize my family's safety and mental well-being without being vilified." Piers pushed. "So you blame the monarchy? The British people? The press?" Harry sighed. "I blame the system, a toxic triangle between the tabloids, the palace, and public opinion. System that eats its own if they step out of line." Piers pounced. "So the victim narrative again?" Harry leaned in. "No, the survivor's narrative. There's a difference, and I'm tired of people like you mocking it." The temperature in the studio rose with every exchange. What was meant to be a controlled interview was becoming a battlefield of ideology and identity. It was only just beginning. Asterisk, then came the moment that changed the tone entirely. Piers, eyes gleaming, asked, "If your mother, Princess Diana, were alive today, do you think she'd be proud of your decisions? Or would she be disappointed that her son walked away from everything she fought to protect?" The question was a calculated hit, designed to provoke a reaction. Harry froze for a split second, visibly shaken, and the audience watching at home collectively gasped. Then slowly he responded, "You don't get to use my mother's memory as a weapon." She faced the same media cruelty you've peddled, same poison. The only difference is, she didn't get the chance to escape it. I did, Piers interjected. Or did you just run? Harry stared at him, jaw clenched. No, I protected. You confuse retreat with wisdom, silence with guilt. Oh, that says more about you than me. For the first time, Piers seemed briefly out of his depth, but he recovered quickly, predictably doubled down. Asterisk, you talk about mental health. Fine, Piers said. But what about the mental health of those you left behind? Your brother, your father, your grandmother in her final years? Did they deserve silence too? Harry, visibly emotional now, responded, I didn't go silent. I went unheard. Every time I spoke up internally, I was told to keep quiet too. Smile, to remember who I was. When that didn't work, I found a new way to speak. And the very people who once said they cared told me I was being dramatic. Piers raised his voice. Maybe because you've turned personal pain into a brand. Harry slammed the table lightly with his palm. Turned survival into advocacy. There's a difference. Speaking my truth helps someone else feel less alone, then I'll wear that criticism as armor. The room was silent but charged. The interview was no longer about optics. It was raw, personal, and painfully real. Asterisk, in an attempt to regain control, Piers shifted gears again. You and Meghan have built an empire off the very media you claim to despise. A spot of books. How do you reconcile that? Harry didn't flinch. We're using our voices on our terms. There's nothing hypocritical about reclaiming your story after years of it being distorted. Piers raised an eyebrow. Or you've just become very good at monetizing victimhood. Harry's expression darkened. We're not selling pain, we're transforming it. You call it exploitation. I call it evolution. Piers grinned smugly. Evolution funded by clickbait and cash, Harry replied, coming from a man who monetizes outrage. That's rich. The studio murmured. For once, Harry had turned the narrative on Piers, and the host didn't like the taste of his own medicine. He was fidgeting now, frustrated that his control over the direction of the interview was slipping. Asterisk at this point, the tension in the room was palpable. Producers could be seen shifting nervously off camera, unsure whether to intervene. Piers, sensing his grip loosening, leaned in with a final jab. Tell me this, Harry, are you happy? After everything? The fallout, the chaos, the headlines, the estrangement, was it worth it? Harry leaned back, contemplative. Freedom is rarely free, but yes, I'm finally in a place where I can breathe. I wish it didn't come at the cost it did, but I no longer wake up dreading each day. Piers scoffed. So the rest of us just have to deal with your mess while you breathe in California? Harry shook his head. The only mess I see is the one created by people trying to make me the villain of my own story. Piers snapped, then stop acting like one. And that was the moment something in Harry visibly snapped. Asterisk, he stood up, calmly but firmly. Removing his mic. This isn't an interview. It's an ambush dressed as journalism. I thought this was a conversation, but I see now it's a performance for ratings, for ego, for power. Piers looked stunned for a moment, but managed. To utter walking away again, are we? Harry turned slowly and said, No. Choosing peace over provocation, and maybe one day you'll learn the value of that. With that, he walked off the set, leaving Piers staring blankly at the empty chair. The cameras didn't cut. Immediately, there was a moment of complete silence. No applause, no music, just the weight of what had just happened, settling over the room. Piers Morgan, so often the one to storm off, had just been walked out and nanned by the one man he thought he could outmaneuver. Asterisk social media exploded in real time. Hashtags like hashtag Harry walks out, hashtag Piers vs Prince, and hashtag Royal Exit 2.0 dominated trending lists across platforms. Clips of the walk-off flooded timelines within minutes. And pundits, journalists, and viewers all chimed in with their takes. Some called Harry brave, standing up to years of media bullying. Others said he was fragile, unable to face tough questions. But one thing was universally agreed upon: what had just aired wasn't an interview. It was a reckoning. confrontation between two versions of truth. Two men defined by the power of their voices, now clashing in the most public way possible. And as Piers sat in awkward silence, clearly rattled despite his best efforts to brush it off, the world saw something it hadn't before: Prince Harry. Not as a runaway royal or a rebel duke, but as a man unwilling to be diminished anymore.